Hey, recently I have been through one of the question which has been asked by one of my student, and which has been asked like, hey, so in Linux, by the way, when we learn the Linux, we talked about the package management by using yum install and using that particular approach, we are installing the software. But whereas when it comes to the project in the DevOps, so we have observed that it has been happening uh, through the so the zip files and all. So it is a bit confusing, and why is it happening, or it needs more clarity, or so why is it happening? In order to understand that, so first of all you need to understand, so when you actually do an M installation, it is not doing something any magic out there. Okay, so we need to understand that what all the steps that we perform manually, so it is being automated in a script that and it's just going to perform. So in order to help you in understanding that, so here how to build an RPM, by the way, so there is an information so directly from the Red Hat. So let's take it out and let's try to understand what it is really happening here. Now when you actually want to build an RPM package, so what you need to do is aligning to the RPM build, you need to create one folder structure. So this is how the folder structure will look like. And inside this one, so you are going to keep one tar file. So you are just creating one hello.sh file, so like this, and making that particular file into a tar file, and you are going to make that particular version whatever you create in the spec file in RPM, like whatever the version you want to make it and all. So when you are actually building a package, so it has some standards like which version to build and all these particular things, the name of the package, which architecture it supports, all those particular things we need to kind of provide that particular information. And all this particular information has been provided in spec, by the way. So in the spec you provide all the information, and along with that, so when you actually do an RPM build, so it kind of just pick up all those things and makes an RPM. And over here it also mentions that when you do an installation, what you really need to do. So when you do a M install, by the way, so this is what necessarily that we need to do. Okay, and when you do an M clean, so kind of a thing, so what need to be done? Okay, so what are the files involved in this particular package, okay, or need to be copied? All that information has been so mentioned over here. And finally we will go with the RPM build, and so building the package, you just give that particular spec file, and in that particular location it is going to give and generate an RPM file. So now going back to the what we are doing is, so previously I mean in the project, by the way, so we may be going like taking the developer code and downloading the zip file, and we're running some blah 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 commands. What we essentially do is now as a part of if you want to really go through the yum, by the way, so what you need to do is you just need to make the RPM folder structure, okay, of the developer files, and you just make all those particular things over here, build a package, and you get that particular package and you do the yum installation on the server. So and we usually don't prefer this extra process. Why? Because and I mean usually in the DevOps project, by the way, so we don't generally make the software which is kind of redistributed to outside world. That means like being working as a DevOps engineer, your product may not be always a software that give to the customer to download and install. It may not be all the time, but it may be the case as well, but may not be all the time. So most of the business companies, they develop the application for their internal purpose, and maintaining this particular yum package is an overhead, by the way, and that is the reason. So we don't need to really go through the yum installation. But whereas as I am a software, so let's say maybe as an example, like maybe MongoDB. Now MongoDB is a database, and which is a kind of a software which will be widely used by different people out there. So that is where, in order to better distribute this particular operating system, better distribute this package for supporting multiple operating systems, so what I will do is we'll generate the kind of a yum package, and we will give it to so to the people, like so they can just download this particular package and install it. They don't need to go with all the manual steps that to set up the MongoDB. We need to maybe copy 100 files in the system, need to create some service files in the system. Okay, so maybe configure some kernel parameters. All these particular things in one shot will happen. Okay, that is the reason. Maybe for them it makes sense, but generally, like so if you have application which is used for internal purpose, which is only hosted in our servers and will be served as a web application, maybe we'll prefer to go with direct installation, maybe downloading the zip files and running some bunch of commands, and just start the service. So that is the reason. Okay, so doing an M installation or making an M package for that, essentially even I can make it. There is nothing that's stopping me. It's only looking at the operation overhead, which it is necessarily not needed, whereas my automation can do the job. So that's the reason we're not really going and making RPM packages. Generally in the DevOps projects, you see it even like in the trainings or even in general cases if you see in, by the way. So this is not going to happen. Why? Because the scenario, it's just an overhead which is unnecessary for our kind of a business. So that's the reason. See you in the next video.